Well, this is Friday, so the week has limped and then sunk to its knees at the end, at the weekend. Are you facing up
Yeah.
to the weekend, Pat? And how did you survive the week? More important.
It was a great week. Dude. Yesterday it was absolutely Baltic again. I don't know what it was like for a year, but it was. I was going into the occupied territories from my home here. The occupied territories about 3 minutes up the road, but that's neither here nor there. But I
Yeah.
noticed on my little vehicle it says 2 degrees, two
Aye.
degrees. If it had been another one, it could have been a pop group. The three the 3 degrees.
A pop group,
And it was actually very cold, dude. Very,
it
very
could have
cold.
been it could have been a pop group that was admired by King Charles at one stage.
Oh, yes, yes. That's right. Favorite group, the 3 degrees. Yeah. Anyway, enough
Anyway,
of
anyway,
yeah.
enough of the chitter chatter. Let's look at a few of the issues of the day. One that's been dominating the headlines really here anyway is Casement Park and the funding thereof. Now, there's a piece in the Irish Times today. I'm not sure who it's by. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And the guys bringing it back to 1953 when Casement Park was originally opened and was
Yeah.
blessed by Cardinal Dalton. And, it was seen as a happy marriage of nationalism and Catholicism. But I saw Chris Donnelly on Nolan during the week on TV, and he made the point, and I think it's one that should be borne in mind. For whatever reason, rugby has a stadium, soccer has a renewed stadium, Gaelic has no stadium. Now, that, of course, could be all sorts of good reasons for that, but one has a sneaking feeling that somehow or another there's not the same goodwill towards the GAA that there is towards rugby and soccer. So the DUP are in a bit of a bind, I think, and I'll ask you what you think now. They're being offered 50 million euros
Yeah.
from the South
Yeah. Yeah.
to develop Casement. There are other sources coming in as well. So they have to sort of take the money, do they? Or could they resist it
Yeah.
and say, you
No,
keep out of our
by the way,
business?
the article was you're referring to, I think, as far as I remember, was written by Jeremy Ferreter.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right. Yes.
uh,
Professor Dermot
uh,
Furley.
yeah. And the thing about it, right, Jude, you're 100% right. Chris Donnelly is 100% right. The thing about this, the rugby ground got a lot of money to renew. The Windsor Park got an upgrade, etc., etc. Money's been given quite regularly to the other sports, and so they're now trying to say, oh, well, the GEA should only get about the same amount of money. Well, right, hey, Jude, if you can buy a pint of Guinness for 18 pence, and in 1950, great. But you can't buy it in 2024. Well, like you can only do it at the time you're building someone, and the cost these days are considerably more than when the rugby and soccer grounds were upgraded. So Casement Park has been lying vacant for quite a while. It's basically derelict, but it's a fantastic site. And the thing about it is, the talk is that it'll possibly cost somewhere in the region of 220 million quid. Now, the Southern government, I'm not sure it's 50 million euros or 50 million quid, but they're given so much. The GEA is putting up so much, and so on. So the bottom line of it all is, as the British government who have funded other projects for other sports, are they now going to turn around to the GA? Dude, you can get 50 to 70,000 people at a GA match in Ulster.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the biggest sport in Ulster.
Oh,
You
yeah.
get Derry and Tyrone at a football, and the tickets are sold out within minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the soccer matches or some of the rugby matches, they might struggle to fill a stadium. So, I think there should be parity of esteem and equality of treatment when it comes to GA. And
Yeah.
if the British government is willing to fund other projects, why not the GA?
I totally agree with you, Pat. I think the DUP are in a bit of a bind, as to whether or not they should be making the case for Casement and saying, "Oh, great, we've got this money from the South, well done. We want more from the British government or the GAA or whoever." In other words, they can't quite make up their minds, I think, whether they should be fully behind the renovation of Casement or whether they should say no. The British government, if they say they haven't got the funds, that's fine. Because if they do that, it's been tied into the Euros, which really sort of snookers them. Because if they say no, we won't have anything to do with it, that's going to be blanking the Euros in terms of the
Yeah,
game.
Yeah,
And it exposes people who are simply naysayers all the time.
yeah. Dude, if they turned down possibly the biggest sporting event on this side of the world in 2028, you know, I'd really portray them as backwoods people, and as you say, naysayers. Dude, can you imagine when you look back on what Belfast was 30 years ago, bombed out, shutters everywhere, soldiers in the streets, and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Can you imagine 228, a new refurbished stadium from Belfast, beaming all over the world? Whoever it happens to be, maybe England playing Spain in a big Euro match, all the publicity from that. A superb looking Belfast being showcased right across the globe. Can you imagine too? Right. The other thing is West Belfast and Belfast in general. If we start building a £220 million stadium, that's going to generate a hell of a lot of work
Oh,
for a lot of
yes.
people.
Yeah.
It's going to lift the whole. What is it? The rising tides lift all boats. This
Yes.
could help. And the thing about it as well, the GAA have said they will not restrict usage of the stadium just to GAA. They can host big events there and for years to come. So
Uh,
it's going to be, in other words, cut off your nose, spite your face type thing.
yeah.
If the unionists block this,
That's right. Chris Donnelly was making a point, something similar to this, and saying, it'll be for all sorts of events besides Gaelic games. And the irony of it is that it's with the deadline of the Euro Championship
yeah,
soccer games in 2028 that is driving this effort to be developed. And Chris Norris, of course, has said he's guaranteeing it.
yeah,
Really, I don't know if they've got a leg to stand on. If Britain doesn't come in with it, I think there'll be a very negative response from nationalists, given the circumstance.
yeah.
If the DUP go pull back as much as they're doing at present, they're going to look very mean-spirited. And they'll have the wrath of the people who are organising Euro 28, as well as everybody else. And
Yeah.
West Belfast will be I think, particularly irked, and I think Chris Donnelly put his finger on that idea that we can develop sports that are seen as non-sectarian or followed by everybody, but we're not going to develop it for these Fenians. Did you see that program where Chris Donnelly was talking to Nolan by any chance during the week, Pat?
No.
Well, it was very interesting because Nolan said, well, if you're opposed to it, he had a TUV guy on. He said, if you're opposed to it on the grounds of money, that it should be going, we're in so many crises at present, there's health and there's everything else. And he says, there's education. You could say that about anything. You'd have to take the money from it. And the only thing we'd do would be put money, where this is. He then said, maybe it'd be better to focus on really bread and butter right now, education right now.
Yeah.
And he brought in a clip for about 10 minutes of two kids of special needs, little kids, and talked to the mother, and the kid looked at the camera and waggled their fingers and so on. And then he came back to it and he said, of course, you see, we could make the case for special education, but always something to avoid putting the money into it. And Donnelly pulled him up nicely. He said, you said that, that you could make a case for anything rather than sport, which would be wrong because clearly sport must be catered to. And yet you go and put on this sort of a sob story of these two little kids who are special needs and wouldn't be, their needs wouldn't be met. I just thought it sort of exposed Nolan. And Nolan, by and large, I thought, was on the side of those who would say, yeah, too much money.
But here's the thing. You see that there. They never come up with this same thing when his money been spent on bringing the British Open to Royal Portadown or Royal whatever it is. You never come up with this when Windsor Park's getting an upgrade, or when Ravenhill gets a big upgrade. That never comes into play. But Jude, here's the thing. The GAA is not sectarian. The Gaelic games are the native games of this place. They're unique to our sort of culture. And the majority of people who live in this island are Irish. They support GAA. Now the majority of people who live in Northern Ireland the majority, I'm not saying whatever, are of the nationalist Catholic background. Surely, in a parity of esteem, the very least they can do is have that recognised, their games recognised. And by the way, Jude, this is, I remember there was Peter Wuthnell who played for Down, was a Protestant. The RUC, or the former RUC, had a GAA team, and all this bollocks that I keep listening to, Jude. The GAA has now become a very cross community game. There's plenty of people interested in it and so on. So this rubbish. And Jude, it is mean spirited. That's what it's all about.
It is,
You know,
but Pat, I wouldn't exaggerate too much or emphasize too much the fact that it is cross community.
no, I'm not trying to, Jude, but what I'm saying is it's going that direction. It
Yeah,
can't, maybe
it is.
and then way back 50 years ago, it was a different ball game. But Jude, it's reaching out. It's progressive, not regressive. It's
That's
going
right.
going in a certain direction, and that's a fact. Everybody's sort of playing it.
About
Go ahead.
30 years ago, when I was still doing little bits of research, I did a piece where I went round and I interviewed the head of sports departments in a range of schools, mainly state schools in the north here. And the question essentially that I asked the guy was, how would they feel? Would they be in favor of Gaelic sports being part of their sort of smorgasbord of sports offered to children in their school? And they all said, yes, I would be in favor of having Gaelic games as part of the smorgasbord of the curriculum for the students. But I couldn't do it. And I said, why not? I said, the parents would object really up strongly. Every single case, they said the parents would object. Now, I don't think they were telling me a lie. I think they were saying that's the way it is. In the communities, there is that sort of reflex reaction against GAA. And let's be honest, the GAA does have nationalist links. It was established as a sort of sporting leg of a revival of Irish culture at the turn of the century, 20th century. So in a way, you can see, if you're living in the past, you would be saying, I have nothing to do with it. But if you rise up and say, this is a football game, the same way as somebody likes to play rugby, I don't know why, but they like to play rugby, or they like to play soccer for Northern Ireland, that's fine. But to turn your back on a game that is growing by leaps and bounds, if you'll pardon the metaphor, it's daft. It's really, it sort of exposes something kind of pathetic, I think.
Yeah.
However, let's note the point that this thing for casement is tied in with other developments. Far more money still is going to the A5, which would be serving your interests, I think, up there in Donegal, Pat. Now, they say that there was something like, I don't know, over a period of 10 years or something, was 50 deaths on the road. It was a very bad road up there off the Cloy. Do you think it should be developed? Because I was thinking, I wonder, is it too late? I mean, I think you need definitely much, much better infrastructure running up there to Derry and across Donegal. But, I mean, I felt the same way with other projects. Would it not be better rail? Because one of the problems we have is car pollution. What do you think?
Good. I think it may be too late. Their houses built every which way and all the rest. Now, here, Jude, this week, the Irish government announced roughly almost €1 billion for cross-border projects. I think it's 850 million, and then there's some ancillary, so it's near enough. Right, is it 600 million for the A5? Jude, when I was a young fella, me and my brother going to America, and my father and my mother drove us to the airport. And my father, when we were leaving Letterkenny, he says, "Oh, I can't wait to get into the good roads in the north." That's how it was back then. Now, if you're driving to Dublin from Donegal and you go through up by Aughnacoy and on up through that way, and so the worst roads by far in the north. You get a tractor outside Strahan Mill somewhere, heading towards Aughnacoy, and you're behind it for God knows, because there's a constant stream of traffic coming the other way, and your chances of getting past it are about nil. So you could be there for God knows how long. Once you get into the south, the roads are so superior. Now, and you're right. I think in about 10 years, I think the statistics said there's been 50 fatalities. But that doesn't tell you about the fatalities. I have been on that road, and I'd say maybe once a year you've seen a car at the side of the road crashed, or
Damaged.
wrecked and some damaged in some way.
Hmm.
And so there's no, I don't know how many statistics would that would show up. So Jude, it is vital. The other thing as well, Jude, have you ever come this way and you see the number of lorries coming from Dublin towards Donegal, Andy Derry, and this narrow one track road, and then you look around Coleraine, Portadown, Ballymena, all these big motorways, and by the way, go down south. The last day there, the RT had a thing about some sort of bypass thing down about Cork, and Jude, they showed an overview. It must have been one of those things.
Yeah, drones. Yeah.
What drones, and Jesus, Jude, it looked like spaghetti junction. That thing, they
Mm-hmm.
found in Ireland, Jude, there was about 15 motorways, crisscrossing each other,
Mm-hmm.
and up into Derry and Donegal, a single track road. So, Jude, we desperately need it. If anybody's thinking about putting industry here or setting, ease of transport here, they need the road. And Jude, it is a bloody awful road, and that's putting it mild.
Mm-hmm.
You're a guy from Oma, you should know everybody as well as
Oh,
I do.
absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Well, I mean, it's a bit late for me. I don't live in Noma any longer, but that used to be, you had to come up through Slane and God knows where, coming up from Dublin. I think this is a very good example. And of course, it's interesting, the timing of it as well. It's a very good example of the shared island scheme that Micheál Martin is behind. Now, I wouldn't say, of course, that he wishes to lob this in because he knows there's an election coming up this year, but I might hint at it just the same. It's a timely one, and it does make the kind of sense that you'd like to see, that you don't just talk about, oh, we'll be nice to each other and so on. You put solid money in there and you make a difference to people's lives. I think that's really kind of wonderful. So it's roads, it's sport. That's the kind of thing you want to see being developed. And again, I think it really does expose the latent, if not sectarianism, then certainly chill that comes from the DUP against anything to do with the other community.
Yeah, but Jude, here and last week, Heaton Harris and the DUP, or 2 weeks ago, this Windsor framework, and there was a sort of a total omission of the All Ireland economy. In fact, if I remember correctly, they sort of said this new deal would reject the All Ireland economy. There was no mention of it, and in fact, I think there was actually Heaton Harris said someone that there'd be some sort of move to remove all the All Ireland economy from this new Windsor framework. So here we are a week later, and the Irish government is offering 800 million or 850 million. By the way, I don't see the DUP sending it back. So, Andrew, but the thing about it is, these are real things. They're talking about, right, the other things. There's a bridge, a narrow water bridge that has been going on for many, many years, which will help people in those two communities near Carlingford. What's the other one? The Dublin Belfast Rail on there everywhere.
Oh, that's terrific.
You're telling me that's not going to help Northern Ireland big time? Of course it is.
Of course.
And what else? There's a couple of other projects. So the whole thing. These are, by the way, Jim, we should also add in, the Irish government are paying, I think is it 50 million this coming year for McGee University in Derry.
Oh yes, that's right.
And they're paying for the funding of nurse training as well. So Jude, the days of Dublin not having a say are sort of gone, and you're dead right. I think the unions don't like it, but they like the money. But hey, Jude, I thought you made the point. I thought Sir Geoffrey's attitude to him was very, I'll use your mean-spirited. I thought it was petty. The Irish government is like, if it helps if the 800 million helps secure the union because it makes it a better place, he'll be delighted. But he could, but what did he say? The responsibility of Northern Ireland was the British government.
But it's very hard.
Maybe that's for his own community, by the way.
You never know. Yeah, I imagine when he speaks, he realizes that his own lot, the people who vote for him, are listening. But for so long, for decades, even before the Troubles, probably, the whole thing was to keep Northern Ireland separate from, not interfered with in any way by this terrible southern state. And now they're faced with the circumstances where, in fact, that this southern state is having an input, only, as you
Yeah.
say, unfortunately, it's stuff that's clearly good. It's given them money.
Yeah.
So it would be a very painful bind to be in, because your loyalty, your traditional loyalty would say, not a penny, I'd rather eat grass. But then
Yeah.
the other party says, oh, Jesus, the grass could be on these wonderful pitches. The grass could be, make way for roads that are can be traveled on. So it's a tough one for them, really. I do have genuine sympathy for them, because they're being asked to sort of do a handbrake turn on all the things that they have been told and taught over the decades.
You can imagine Bryson and people like that are sitting, saying, look, this is a creeping all Ireland economy. I mean, you can see it everywhere. And there's an element of truth. Now, you
Oh,
can't
he's right.
argue that.
That's right. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Because it makes economic sense, apart from everything
Yeah.
else. But it also, of course, makes sense in terms of politics. And there, Bryson and company, I think, in general terms, are right when they say that the economic unity is a predecessor, or obviously they work on it as a predecessor for a political union. But again, you go back to the point you've often raised, which is nothing changes until the people of the north of Ireland vote and decide they want to leave the union. If they accept the
By the way, Jude, can I stop you there? One of the things that never ceases to amaze me, that point seems to go over the head of most unions. Every time there's something, Jude, if they want to grow the union and keep a union with Britain, surely, and it's a very basic, simple point, is that you make this place work. You make it acceptable to the soft nationals, as you call them, and that we sort of work together. And then the soft nationals can say, we're getting the best of two worlds. We can be as Irish as we want, and we have the old British system. We have the NHS, and despite its problems, and we have all the other things. We have cheaper cars, we have lower tax, or whatever the hell it might be. I'm not quite sure anymore, and all the benefits of the British system. But we can call ourselves Seamus, and we can live in a place with Irish names, and we can go to an Irish language school, and there's no more discrimination in jobs. We can even be a majority at Stormont and all the rest. Now, if the union with Britain is so anemical, or so part of it being what do you call it, a unionist, surely you should be encouraging people to be more at home. And if that keeps the wee Fenians down the road happy, let them have it. Instead of this sort of, hey, the Brexit. No, I think somebody said to me one time, oh, Bryson's a very smart guy. If he's so smart, if he reject everything Irish, what are you telling the nationalist community, who are now the majority? Hey, you're not wanted here. So what do you do? Irish unity? I don't get that.
Well, I think that the problem is that they know the way history is moving. How many people are going to be, if Jeffrey Donaldson, how many converts do you think Jeffrey Donaldson will make, or Jimmy Bryson, over the next, say, 5 years to the cause of pro-UK, remaining in the UK? How many people do you think will he convert?
None.
He might convert them the other direction.
They're picking them in the other direction. But I remember about 2010, 2011, after the Good Friday Agreement really came in to start working, and there was, remember the Chuckle Brothers and all that sort of stuff. Hey, something? There was 91% satisfaction rating with McGuinness and Paisley.
Yeah,
a lot of nationalists were quite happy in Northern Ireland, and I remember a lot of middle class Culmore Road types in Derry. The whole thing about Irish unity had sort of gone way off the back burner. In fact, it had fallen off the stove altogether.
Well, somebody has lifted it up again, Pat. Somebody has lifted it up.
And the sectarianism of the unionism.
Well,
the DUP went for the hard Brexit and sort of saying, "Oh, man, we've got a chance to go back to the 1950s." Fuck you, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yeah. In fact, your own, well, you don't live in Derry, but you live very near to it. There was a case in point there this week, a couple of days ago, where the chairman or the leader of the SDLP was nearly being sued for breaking the law.
Judge, so by the way, I think that was
families from Bloody Sunday by Jimmy Bryson.
By the way, Jude, that was an absolute disgrace, and I mean an absolute disgrace. These people didn't. By the way, they didn't organize a protest. They didn't carry placards. It wasn't any sort of organized. It wasn't any sort of. On the morning, they've waited 52 years for this, and on the morning of the court case, They gathered at a certain place and they walked up, Jude, and they weren't shouting, they weren't roaring, they weren't intimidating anybody. The road was empty. And for even the police to even consider that, for Jude, they done it with dignity, and they weren't, and it was they weren't sort of putting flags up or doing anything sectarian, at anybody's face or anything. It was in their own city on a quiet, whatever it was, Monday morning, and they walked with dignity. They didn't even. There was no roaring, no shouting, no nothing.
But I agree with everything you've said, and I do believe that poor Jimmy scored an own goal with that one. But at the same time, I don't think that Colm Eastwood and even the Bloody Sunday families would have been totally unaware of the fact that, as moving as a group down towards the courthouse, that there wouldn't be photographers and press watching them. And
I think that was the whole idea.
They wanted to raise the profile of their case.
That was for the photographers. It wasn't a march, and it wasn't a protest, and it wasn't a demonstration. They were walking to court, and I think that the idea of walking together was for the press.
Well, it was a natural thing to do, in a sense, say we're all in this together. And I'm sure Colm Eastwood would say, unto himself, if not to other people, well, this will not do me much harm politically either. It'll get a boost.
But by the way, last night, I saw Eastwood he was on BBC, and he was getting absolutely drenched. It was bucketing down, but he stayed there to do, and he was very good. Actually, I agreed 100% with him that the very fact that the police even considered doing it, it was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
The only thing more daft than that was the time that they arrested, not too long ago, where they arrested the guy who was one of the people injured in the Armagh Road wedding shop. That the PSNI keep on making mistakes. Well, that's a charitable word for it. They keep on making mistakes that are damaging to them. And, nobody wants to have a police service or a police force that is apparently listing against one side. They really do have to work harder. They were doing great at the beginning. I can't tell you how much I admired the way they operated in the early years. But since then, they really do seem to have made one blunder after another. And for them to be involved in any way other than a sympathetic way in terms of that Bloody Sunday family in Colm Eastwood is unthinkable. And as for the Armagh Road thing, bloody ridiculous. Okay, let's move across to the mainland, Pat. Now, it's not any island off Donegal and then on into Donegal. This is the mainland, down to our home parliament in Westminster. And there, the speaker has been left speechless, more or less, because he has been criticised because Labour was, what was it? Labour were going to put forward a motion about Gaza.
The SNP. Supposed to be.
And wasn't he a former MP for a Labour MP?
A former Labour MP. Jude, right here. Now, Jude, don't ask me to explain the procedural thing, but here's the bottom line of it all. The SNP were supposed to have the sort of the vote thing. He took the Labour amendment and sort of sidelined the SNP. The SNP are basically saying, wait a minute, what's going on? And Sir Lindsay said that he was doing this because to protect the, if the Labour guys didn't get a chance to sort of express an opinion, that their physical, the intimidation of them is quite serious out there. Right, the bottom line is, the SNP said, wait a minute, no, you basically were looking after Labour, and the Tories, of course, they piled in as well. But the bottom line is, Jude, you can read anything, and I think Keir Starmer is absolutely up shit creek without a paddle as regards this whole thing in Gaza. He originally basically said it was all right to turn off the water, the food, the medicines, and everything else to Gaza, and he had to resign from that position, and he hasn't really recovered from it since. And a lot of it, was it 56 of his MPs voted against him the last time in regards to Gaza.
That's right.
They want apparently a ceasefire, forthwith. He wants a ceasefire with hostages released and all this sort of stuff, and all sorts of codicils and so on. So anyway, the bottom line is, I think Sir Lindsay was looking after
Labour
as pal Sir Keir. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Well, I would agree with you, and he really, actually, I thought it was a terrible example because he apologized and then he went on getting with a wobble in his voice, talking about colleagues. He didn't want to pick up the phone and be told that one of his colleagues had been murdered. I thought that was sort of kind of
I thought
disgusting.
the
Kind of
distraction and
disgusting. Like
diversion.
standing, to me, in a sense, I've used this metaphor during the Troubles, standing in the coffin of the dead and making claims and shouting.
Exactly.
So, and that wobble in the voice, he was truly emotional. For God's sake, we just stop. He was like a teacher who had lost control of the class.
And as well as that, that was distraction, Jude. I genuinely, I think the wobble in the voice was for his own self, self-pity. It wasn't for what he had done. And Jude, I genuinely believe, I think Starmer is really on a loser, guys. The only thing people will vote for Starmer is that he's not a Tory, because I think the whole thing about Gaza has been a disaster for Labour. And by the way, apparently his party is seriously divided against him, if you know what I mean. And anyway, and I think Sir Lindsay was looking after him big time.
Yeah, but you see, the dominant voices in Labour are voices that are towing the Starmer line. And actually, when you see the stuff that's happening in Gaza, it's sort of immoral to hold it back, a condemnation of attack and calling for a ceasefire now. For one day, even a single day lost means more lost lives in Gaza.
But anyway, Jude, we move on to all that sort of stuff. Jude, I think at this stage it's nearly an irrelevance, because the Americans and the Brits have they have given the Israelis so long to do what they have done that any now calling for a ceasefire, Jude, is sort of I think hypocritical. The damage has been done. Gaza is basically destroyed. Roughly about 100,000 people are dead or injured. Whatever, there's starvation, disease. The hospitals are all gone. So, all now that's left is more dead.
Well, yeah, well, yes, more dead, because there is something like 1 million extra people in Rafah, and that's where the Israelis are getting ready to attack. God,
they already are attacking it. They've bombed out on the outskirts of Rafah, so they're softening Rafah up for that.
How do you think Israel is ever going to pick up on the global PR disaster, leave aside the death, the global PR disaster that they have engaged in for the last 3 months? How do you think
I know you're not a big thing on social media, but you go onto Twitter and you can see the app. There's this term Hasbara. It's the old official Israeli PR propaganda machine. They are churning out pro-Israeli stuff about girls being raped by Hamas, about beheaded babies, and about we're never going to go back, and you people have got it all wrong. The West need to watch out. These are fundamentalist Islamic jihadists, and they're coming from you. We're fighting the battle for the West, and so on. These people are a death cult. You read it, all sort of stuff, Jude. Not once do they admit that, wait a minute, we have between 2008 and 2023, September, before this thing started on October 7th, there were 6,400, Jude. I checked out 6,400 Palestinians murdered, because that's the word, by Israel. And now, the Israelis seem to want us all to believe this started on October 7th.
But you see, they really have, I think it's a Jewish word, actually, or a Hebrew word, chutzpah, because I was listening to a conversation or a discussion between Goretti, I've forgotten her second name, who is Eamon McCann's partner in Derry.
Goretti
Horgan. And she was talking alongside this Jewish or Israeli spokeswoman. And God almighty, I mean, she just, the woman refused to accept anything that Goretti was saying. It was daft. It really was daft. No, it seems to be Israelis will talk their way through anything, justify anything. They will say literally black as white.
Right, we're killing thousands and thousands of Gazans, but why don't Hamas surrender and it'll all stop?
And remember the 7th of October, I said I was going to start it. Okay, Pat, that's awful. We have no light or sunshine for people's lives. Come on, Pat.
No.
Finish on a good note. if this was an old newsreel thing, there'd be a chimpanzee's tea party or something, or maybe a royal visit.
Remember the UTV program, Drop the Dead Donkey?
Oh, aye.
Remember, it's about the newsroom, and always the last thing. RT used to do it too. They'd always have sort of the soft items, like the guy watching his car going over the cliff or something. Someone
Have we got one though? That's the point. No,
no.
You have to think for one.
We're just two old political pundits, or what do we
Okay,
like to call
Pat,
us?
thanks very much.
All the best, Jude.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
That's good. We never got to Mason Greenwood. I wanted to get to Mason Greenwood because that's a good.
I know we can keep hoping next week.
Aye. Anyway, enjoy your weekend, Pat.
Enjoy your weekend, Jude. All the
Thanks
best.
very much. I really appreciate these. I really enjoy them. The only thing I miss is more time to chat to you.
I will catch up with you, Jude.
Aye. Okay, Pat.
All the best.
Bye now.